Say it louder for the camera.
And love whales
How much?
this much.
Hello, whale watchers. Welcome back to Whales Anonymous, a crime story. Last week we covered the infamous cult leader, Charles Salmonson. Apparently inspired by some real-life guy, we have been informed. Now, over the course of this week, we received news that Charles is in fact deceased. And we would like to take a moment of silence for all of those humpbacks that he was responsible for killing. We suppose the story proves the old rule that whales are better than fish unless that whale is also a psychopath. However, this was a fish that was indeed a psychopath. Today we will be discussing the illustrious killer whale. It is a fascinating creature that my team, the whalers, have been researching extensively. This topic will, we are sure, help inform, teach, instruct, train, coach, enlighten, educate, tutor, and guide you in your knowledge of whales. Known as either the killer whale or orca, this animal is a whale of the oceanic dolphin family, being the most massive of that grouping. Some sources have suggested that the orca is not in fact a whale at all, but a dolphin, but those sources are incorrect. Within this grouping of oceanic dolphins are also bottlenose dolphins, pilot whales, and even one peculiar one called a melon-headed dolphin. Now, contrary to popular belief, these dolphins are not in fact named that because of their head, but because of the professor, doctor, writer, and speaker, James Malone Hedda, the man who discovered the species and for whom the name was given. Coincidentally, Dr. Malone Hedda had a head roughly the size of a small watermelon, so we suppose it fits. Either way, we are in support of this bizarre creature. Oh yes, the orcas. They belong to that family, and the Latin is far too difficult for us. But they do eat lots of different stuff. Some eat those big fish, like seals or dolphins. Others just the small ones. What's that? Okay, yeah. So I have been informed that dolphins and seals are in fact not fish. Now you must wonder, where is the line at which this just becomes cannibalism? Now, if whales are not fish, seals are not fish, is it? Well, the researchers do not care. They are apex predators, meaning that no other creature is allowed to attack them, unless they have the express permission of the company known as WOW, them some tasty whales incorporated. Then it is completely appropriate and encouraged. Now, orcas live all sorts of places, whether the Arctic, Antarctic, even the tropics, but most notably, SeaWorld. They are very social creatures and have extremely complex vocal behavior, which we will talk about a little bit later. Now, unfortunately, orcas or killer whales, which seems like a bit of a derogatory term. I mean, we don't call humans killer humans when we kill stuff. Well, I guess we kind of do. We call people murderers when they murder someone, so okay. But we don't really know if they're threatened or endangered or what's going on. According to Wikipedia, it says, and I quote, "The International Union for Conservation of Nature assesses the orca's conservation status as data deficient because of the likelihood that two or more killer whale types are separate species. Some local populations are considered threatened or endangered." End quote. Although data have been inconclusive with the status of orcas, their danger to humans is limited in the wild. In captivity, however, there have been instances of injury or even death with the handlers of these whales. Now, we're unsure of whether taking a stance on this topic of captivity with whales. We don't know if it's appropriate, but we do know that whales are pretty tight. Pretty cool, man. And you know what else is cool? That just reminds me. Reading a book. You ever do that? is go on your back lawn, getting yourself a nice cup of coffee, hey, maybe even hot chocolate or milk, warm milk. Maybe like a nice cold drink, a Pepsi, Mountain Dew. Hey, you're watching your weight, get that Diet Coke. Or maybe, just maybe, if you're feeling really, really spicy, drink some nice cold water. And when you're relaxing on that back porch, front porch, whatever I said, sometimes you just want a nice, calm book to guide you through your day. Well, today I'd like to share about a new novel released by the incredibly accomplished writer, Francesca Plurdman. Her newest book is out now. And in fact, she's the first sponsor of this podcast. Her new book, Lies and Deception at Murder Mansion, is an appropriate and, may I say, a perfect read for those who love the gentle and the calm of the aquatic outdoors. Murder, extortion, and even a little romance fill the pages of this incredibly tense thriller. You will need all of your detective skills in order to solve whodunit. Please go to booksarcoolio.com to order yourself a copy. I'm sure you will love it more than you even love whales. That's a joke. You can love nothing more than whales. Nothing. Returning to our discussion on orcas, let's focus in on the vocal behavior of orcas. Their underwater speech is either a click, a whistle, or a pulsed call. The difference between the three and their specific uses is not clear, but as far as we know and what the research tends to suggest, the clicks seem to be used for navigation and hunting, but also for communication between the whales. Strangely, and this is a really cool thing that scientists have begun to notice, the whales that are considered resident variety, that live in the Northeast Pacific, tend to be more vocal than those who are considered a transient type within the same area. Those resident types tend to eat more Chinook and chum salmon, which do not pick up on whale calls, so they can be more loud. The transient types, however, their prey picks up on those calls a lot more easily, so these whales are not as loud. Now, researchers still aren't completely sure on why this disparity exists, but this seems like it could be a possible solution. Now, this is a cool thing that whales tend to do within those resident types that I had mentioned earlier. They tend to form a common dialect, similar to how people within the United States have different accents depending on where they are and different slang is used. Now, something that researchers have noticed is that baby whales, when they're very young, tend to pretty much copy what their mothers say, and over time they begin to learn more of this vocabulary from the rest of the pod and from their parents. And they believe that in forming this dialect, they begin to form their identity within the group. And we can see this kind of similarly in how humans operate. Again, within the United States, we can see that if you're from the Northeast, you sound one way, Midwest, South, West, whatever it may be. And these help form their identity to distinguish them from other people. But also interesting is that when whales from a different area begin to communicate with each other, these differences tend to fade. So let's just say someone from the South may say y'all, and I may say soda instead of what they may call Coke. When we meet, those differences wouldn't show up if we were whales. Of course, whales do not drink Coca-Cola or say y'all, but in essence, that illustration would work. These dialects also vary according to location, so again, very similar to how humans work. Now, this information is all very interesting, but you may be wondering, what are these orcas up to now? What are they doing? How are they doing? Are they doing well? Well, you'll be happy to know about this article that I am currently reading, and it is titled, Orcas Look Happy, Healthy Near Bainbridge Island. I'd like to read you the article because it just warms my heart to learn more about these orcas. It says, and I quote, "Southern resident orcas were spotted near Bainbridge Island on Friday, and researchers say they look healthy and happy. The J and K pods were spotted several times over the last few days. Friday, some of the orcas were even seen surfing in the wake of a large ship. At one point, there's a breach. NOAA fisheries scientists said there's no sight of the peanut head condition like in the past. That's an indicator that the animals are losing weight, which apparently is a good thing. Quote, "They were very active. They were pooping a lot." Honest person. Which suggests they're eating. That's a very good sign too, because we know that the food supply is one of the concerns we have. End quote, said Michael Milstein with NOAA Fisheries. Ken Balcom with the Center for Whale Research said the recent sightings means excellent news. It gives us a chance at last to catch up on our condition reports on each individual whale and document who's there and if any have new babies, said Balcom. I'd like to share my thoughts about this article, and although I'd love to share all of my carefully researched information about killer whales, as you can clearly tell how carefully done it has been, I believe that this takes precedence. My little heart, my poor sweet little heart, this thing that beats inside my chest sometimes just gets overwhelmed by all these stories we hear about whales being hurt, about them being hunted internationally. And sometimes I think we just need to hear these stories. Sometimes I think we get lost in the times that we hear. All about how these public schools are teaching our children this anti-whale agenda. Parents, just know I will not stand for the public reading of Moby Dick that is not appropriate for our children. It's promoting the wrong message for them. So I think we can all agree that in 2019, it's nice to hear that the whales are doing okay. Now please hear me. This podcast isn't propaganda for whales. It's my attempt to help inform others about this glorious animal. At the same time, I can't help but use this platform to help promote the cause of whales globally, to help those who have no voice for themselves. Excluding the clicks, the whistles, and the post calls. I just believe so heavily in the cause for these animals. I can't imagine a world without them. Think of the movie Free Willy. Who would be Willy if there were no orcas? Nobody. Nobody. Whales are such an important part of our ecosystem because they do what no other animal could do. Be the largest animal on Earth. Could dogs do that? No. Giraffes? No. Only whales. Blue whales are the largest one. Wait a minute. Okay, follow me on this. You know how big the oceans are? Like, you ever stood on a road that's miles long and look all the way down? Imagine that, but looking down. You can't even see, it's so dark. How in the world do we know blue whales are the biggest thing? There's got to be some sort of Cthulhu-looking thing down there. Like, I like whales. They're pretty cool. But I'm not diving in there with them. Like, not today. It's all good. Enjoy your home. That's your business, not mine. We'd also like to share a few testimonials from listeners of the show.
What are your opinions on whales?
Didn't change anything.
In what regard?
Any
Like
regard.
4 inches and lost 30
Like, they're
pounds.
magnificent creatures that God made.
True.
I think they're really cool. I've seen
On whales?
Yes.
Whales are pretty great.
What do you guys think about whales?
They're big?
Risa, what do you think about whales?
No comment.
Fair enough.
Now would be an appropriate time to introduce our next sponsor, Guacamole Foods and More. Now you know GFM as the creator of such terrific concoctions as guacamole Tylenol and guac tea. But get ready for their latest creation. Have you ever found yourself on a nice date with someone and yeah, things are going good, yeah, dinner was nice, the movie was great, but oh no, it is the end of the night and guess what? Your breath stinks. Guess what? Don't you fret, don't you worry for uno momento. GFM has you covered because coming soon to grocery stores, gas stations, and even libraries are guacamole breath mints. Available in a variety of flavors including garlic, red onion, and even salt and vinegar for those extra spicy smooches. We here at the podcast have tried them and we absolutely recommend them for those special occasions. Please go to their website in the show notes and use the discount code WHALES for 15% off your online order. Returning to our discussion about killer whales, we would like to address one common misconception about them. The name killer whale doesn't really set you up well for being liked. And unfortunately, this has given the Western world the idea that killer whales are dangerous to humans. Even back in 70 AD, the historian Pliny the Elder wrote this about orcas, and I quote, "Orcas, the appearance of which no image can express, other than an enormous mass of flesh with teeth, are the enemy of other kinds of whale. They charge and pierce them like warships ramming." End quote. Now this isn't the best depiction of a creature, I'm sure. But despite this, attacks by orcas have been incredibly rare. And even then, with these attacks sometimes happening, there have been no recorded cases of death by killer whale. And strangely, you compare this with the one recorded case of happiness by killer whale, and you're listening to them, I think they're doing pretty good. Thankfully, within the last 60 or 70 years, the public's perception of whales has changed. A growing knowledge of what they are and the limited danger they pose has helped grow the acceptance of orcas. This has even led to growing cries against captivity of whales, such as that at SeaWorld. Films such as Free Willy have also helped this. Although killer whales, and whales in general, are still subject to whaling or pollution, the public's general sense of appreciation for them has helped mitigate the danger that they face. Killer whales are a terrific creature that, when observed appropriately, demonstrate incredible communicative and relational capacities. I didn't actually know much about killer whales before helping put together this episode. I learned a lot, and it's stunning to me how intricate they can be. Their social structures are complex, and they seem to have a good understanding of how to interact with each other well. I suppose that should be obvious, but I'll be honest, when I think of whales, I don't really think of intelligence. I think of size, and usually we associate that with being dumb. Like, for example, have you ever seen Godzilla? Not the smartest guy in the world, you know? But I guess it's kind of unfair to associate a fictional lizard abomination with killer whales, so I guess that was kind of flawed from the beginning. Also, I would just like to say to any researchers who may be listening looking to name some whales, how about Godzilla? I mean, I'm just saying it's pretty dope, it's kind of fitting, except whales are smarter than Godzilla, but hey, keep it in mind. And of course, as is appropriate, we would like to end this podcast with our final segment, whale poetry. Orcas, oh ye blessed beasts of the sea, with fins as tall as timber trees and teeth as strong as ginger tea that is brewed in lakes, nay, in sea. Orcas, oh ye coveted lovers of the ocean, bring a tear to mine eye. Oh, what sweet emotion that overpowers a watching of the sweet rolling motion of the killer whale, who swims sweet in the ocean. Killer whales, a name that does thee harm in such a way to misunderstand your elegance, yes, even your grace. The flapping and jumping is but the win of a race that you started and won with a thick-bodied trace. Yes, you are fat, you killer whales of the sea, even with bodies that are thicker than trees and a mouth that is open so you eat and you eat. But your fatness is certain, just as you are sweet. We would like to thank you for listening, for taking time out of your day to learn a little bit more about whales with us. If you're listening to us on iTunes, please take some time to give us a good rating. It really helps the podcast and helps us keep moving. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Miss Plurdman and Guacamole Foods and More, for helping support the show, as well as our patrons. If you like what we're doing here and would like to support the show too, please consider joining us on Patreon. New members will receive numerous benefits such as a high five, a Klondike bar, and a signed poster of the whale of your choice, signed by me. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful rest of your day.